Hello everyone, this is Chase from Chaser Guys, starting Wily Fortress Stage 2 in Mega Man 1. Starting off, you're greeted by some Bun Helis, and I'd recommend using the Thunder Beam to make them easier. You can also use the Mega Buster, and if you want to be a little bit more daring, and be very slow and meticulous, and don't let them swarm you. To get this, I'd recommend tapping the D-pad and not running, because you'll fall off the ledge if you run because of Mega Man 1's ice physics. Keep going. And coming up is an invisible pit, so mind that. Stay right here, right above this red dot to the left of it, or like to the top left of it, and right to the right of me is the invisible pit. Switch to whatever weapon you want to refill and jump over the pit. Switch to the Mega Buster, and you can also use the Firestorm for a little bit of extra damage, but it's not worth the ammo use. Shoot this guy immediately, stand on the right wall, and just keep blasting him and keep him pinned against the left wall. This is the easiest way to defeat Cutman, round 2. And do not, you cannot use his weakness, unfortunately, because there's no super Gusman blocks here, but you don't really need it for Cutman. I'd recommend switching back to the Thunder Beam, so you can hit the enemies below you. Coming up is another invisible pit, so be wary of that. Right here, you can refill whatever you want, but in this case, I'm going to refill the Magnet Beam, but I'd probably recommend Thunder Beam over it. Just jump the pit right here to the left of the power-ups and to the right of me. Switch to the Rolling Cutter, and we're going to have a rematch with Elec Man. You can hit it multiple times with the Rolling Cutter if you use its boomerang to your advantage, boomeranging to your advantage, and just use his back jumping to your advantage as well if he does that, because sometimes he'll shoot over you. And you only need 3 hits, just be very aggressive and get very close to him to shoot. I'd recommend switching back to the Thunder Beam. There are some weapon ammo pickups coming up, but I'd recommend skipping them because they're not worth it in the slightest. Continuing on, I'd recommend using the Elec Beam, or the Thunder Beam in this section, that's why I switched to it. Use the Magnet Beam to make a platform to get up here. You can make it longer if you hold the button in longer, just so you know, if that helps. Switch back to the Thunder Beam. And destroy those. Now you want to switch to the Hyper Bomb of all things. Stay up on this ladder and don't drop down, and just use as many Hyper Bombs as you need, because there's not a whole lot of use for Hyper Bombs, so you're fine with how much you use. And good job. Switch back to the Thunder Beam, and here's one of the best uses for it in the entire game. I'd recommend using the big weapon ammo, to refill the Thunder Beam, because that's the one we're using the most and it's the most useful. Drop down here, and there is one blaster to be wary of, in a mixture of electro batteries, so just be careful of that. Coming up is one of the most difficult bosses in the game, the Copy Robot. He imitates whatever you do, whichever special weapon you use, and it can be quite detrimental. You can use whatever you want, but Gusman's weapon's kind of nice because he can't do anything, he just walks back and forth. He won't throw blocks at you, he literally can do nothing, just like you can do nothing. But what I recommend is using the Firestorm. It's one of the easier ones to dodge, and it's his weakness. He shoots at 3 points in the room. The point he spawns at, which is marked by 2 pink squares on the right side of the room, on the bottom part, the middle of the room, which is marked by 2 blue squares on the bottom of the room, and near the left, which is marked by 2 alternate colored squares on the left, near the left wall. He also walks back and forth, and he will not touch the left or right wall normally, and you're safe there. However, if you shoot at him, he'll jump, and he can reach the left or right wall if you're not careful. I'd recommend keeping him pinned against the right wall and staying in the middle of the screen, and you'll see. It's hard to explain, but you'll see. I'm trying to explain as best as I can, but it's difficult. This is a very difficult and nerve-wracking fight. But congratulations, you've just beaten Copy Robot. If you have beaten him, by the way, and used a lot of Fireman's weapon or the Firestorm, don't worry too much about it, because there's not really much more useful for it before we get an actual refill in one of the stages. So don't worry too much. But that's a very difficult fight, and I hope I explained it well. It's a little bit difficult to explain because it's a fairly tough fight. But just note, he walks back and forth. He won't touch the left or right wall, but if you shoot at him and he jumps. And if he jumps, he can touch the left or right wall. And he also seems to sometimes jerk back the opposite way. Like I noticed in the middle, he kept jerking back to the right. I was predicting that and able to dodge his shot in the middle. And on the right side, it seemed like if I kept shooting him, it seems like right after he comes out of a hit, he's not able to shoot in one of those locations. So I was able to use that to my advantage and not even fret about the two pink blocks on the bottom. I was able to use that to my advantage, and he didn't seem to shoot there most of the time if I had just recently hit him. Like I said, you can also use the Gusman weapon if you want a little break from the fight, and he just walks back and forth and you're safe on the walls because I don't think he can do anything if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry for going into so much detail and rambling, but this fight is one of the hardest in the game, and it's given me more trouble than any other fight thus far. And I'm just trying to be detailed and helpful because it's not that bad once you understand it, but it's kind of difficult to understand and get the hang of. But that's how you take care of him. Don't worry about your Firestorm ammo. If you've beaten Copy Robot, you're fine because you can get a game over to refill, and there's not much more use for Firestorm until we get a full refill anyway in the actual game. So don't worry about it, and I hope this was very helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and we will tackle Wily Stage 3 next time. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Thank you, and good night.